Hi, and welcome to this webinar about job shadowing for credential evaluator working with vocational qualification. My name is Guillaume Jaglet, and I will walk you through how to get the best out of this opportunity. So it will be so that I will start with a presentation, and at the end, you can write your question in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we will answer your question at the very end of this webinar. Please be aware that this webinar is recorded and will be published on the website of Directorate of Higher Education and Competence and under the section Bravo 2. So first, let me introduce you Bravo 2, which lays the framework for the job shadowing opportunities. So Bravo 2 is it's a project which lengths 2 years and will continue until September 2027. It is co-funded by the European Union and coordinated by us, the NARIC Norway, and we collaborate with 6 other NARICs from France, Latvia, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Poland, and Turkey on this project. We also have an associated partner, SBB, which is the authority that works with recognition of vocational qualification in the Netherlands. The aim of the Bravo 2 project is to create a collaborative environment for NARICs and other authorities working with recognition of vocational qualification, and to collaborate and exchange practice, work with enhancing quality of recognition and transparency of procedures. To achieve this goal, we have 5 main activities or deliverables because it's a project. And first, it's to formalize a network of partners dedicated to recognition of vocational qualification. This network should involve the NARICs that are interested and that works with recognition of vocational qualification, as well as other stakeholders that are relevant for this network. This network will be supported by a platform where you can get information about education system and recognition schemes in the different countries, as well as access to a toolkit which is developed by the Bravo 2 project on recognition of general secondary education, vocational education and training, and post-secondary education. Finally, we will have a conference dedicated to recognition of vocational qualification for credential evaluator, a kind of tie-up for VET, that will be held in Istanbul next year, the 17th and 18th of March. And at last but not least, we have this staff exchange between recognition centers, and this staff exchange is basically the job shadowing opportunities that I will present now. So why do we want to promote job shadowing? Well, the idea is to have a very easy, accessible practice way to exchange knowledge and experience between the center and to create trust between the center. And we believe that meeting in another office and working with someone else on the same topics create this trust and create the opportunity to have a good cooperation and to sustain the building of a network. The advantages of a job shadowing is that it has consequences on several levels. First, at individual level, the credential evaluator that goes abroad has the opportunity to get fresh perspective on recognition processes, learn new techniques or about frauds detections methods, or learn about the VET system of the country where it goes, or other way of working with recognition. It's also the possibility to build its own network, professional networks within the other NARICs that receive them. At organizational level, we think that it's beneficial both for the sending and the hosting organization because you build the expertise of your staff. Of course, for the one who send the credential evaluator, you have a more motivated and competent worker coming back. And for those who receive, then you have the opportunity for your staff to discuss all your procedures within the organization and build the competence of your staff. So we think it would support reflection on internal workflows, and you will gain knowledge as an organization and it would also foster long-term international cooperation between the centers. And at system level, we think it would deepen the collaboration between the different NARICs and other recognition center when it's not the NARIC that works with it, and build resilient partnership. It would actually foster, we think, better cooperation, and it would be the ground for the network that we try to build, and it would help to know people in another organization, because then it's easier to take contacts and exchange experience. So as a whole, it would help to improve the quality, the transparency, and the consistency of recognition procedures, and by this exchange of competencies. But what is a job shadowing in our case? So we define a job shadowing as a 2 to 3 days placement in another organization. This other organization should be a NARIC working with recognition of vocational qualification, or another recognition authority working with recognition of foreign vocational qualifications. So that's important because we want to exchange on this. It can be at any level. It can be initial vocational education and training, or it can be tertiary vocational education and training, as long as it's handled on vocational qualification. The content of the job shadowing might varies from job shadowing to job shadowing, but we can advise, it may include observation of daily tasks and procedures, participation to meetings or workshops, interviews with staff, guided reflections and sessions, presentation of your own vocational education and training, and exchange about recognition procedures. But the content may be more according to what is the purpose of your mobility. Why do you want to send your credential evaluator? And that's the object of the next slide. Who do what? The central actors in this job shadowing is the participant and the sending organization. Why? Because those who send and go abroad should define the objective for the job shadowing and define how they want to achieve this objective, and by thinking what kind of partner they want to have and what should be the content of the mobility. So it's the job of the sending organization and the participant to organize that. It's also their job to organize the practical side of the mobility, which means paying the expense and traveling and booking the travel and so on, because it's much more easy if you do it yourself. We, in the Bravo 2 project, we provide mostly financial support. And this financial support is there to cover most of the cost of the mobility. I will come back to it. We also provide advice. We have a guide or guidelines that are published on the website, where you can find information about how to do job shadowing and what you have to think about. And we can support you if you have questions about how to organize the job shadowing. We will also collect reports and make a collective reports actually for knowing what are actually the outcomes of the job shadowings and of this activity as a whole, and how we can use these outcomes to build up the competence of any NARICs or recognition center that are member of our network, either by creating activities that are related to the feedback that we have got from these exchanges, or by getting inspiration from one or other countries through this activity, through the reporting we get. And of course, we have to report to the European Union. The hosting organization has obviously a very strong role as well, because they have to define how they will, and first to accept the contents and the definition of the outcomes from the sending organization and the participant, and to define how they will provide support to achieve this goal and to prepare the job shadowing at their place so that it should be a success, and support the participant all the way. But one thing which is important to understand is who can participate in this job shadowing. So this is support for credential evaluators, because we want to have a handy and a tailor-made experience. And it's open to any employees in any NARIC center or national authority in Europe working with recognition of vocational qualifications. In Europe, because we have budgetary limits that make that we cannot open to all the world. These participants or applicants, they should have at least 1 year of experience. The idea is that you should have enough experience to understand better the system of the other country and to relate to it compared to what you do in your own country. It's just to secure that you have a better outcomes than if you are all fresh. It's not exactly good to exchange experience. And it's also more interesting for the hosting organization to get someone who has experience and who can explain how the procedures in your own country is. The hosting organization is another NARIC working with recognition of vocational qualifications, or a recognition authority working with recognition of vocational qualifications. Why? Because not all NARICs work with vocational qualifications. Sometimes it's external organizations, like in the Netherlands. This would be more SBB than NUFIC that work with recognition of vocational qualification, and SBB would be a more suitable partner for a job shadowing. It can be another organization. We can mention as well BQ or other, in BQ in Germany or other. But the question that you may think is, how do I find a suitable partner to send my participant abroad or to be a participant abroad? Well, there are several solutions. First, you may check your own network and see which of our existing partners we would like to have deeper cooperation, or has a competence we would like to know more about, or a process that we would like to know more about. And you can take contact directly with them and ask if they can host your participant. Another solution is to think about where come from most of the applicants and think, oh, which organization is working with recognition of vocational qualification from this country, and ask if they can host your applicant, so you can get more information about this country and also exchange about how you deal with recognition yourself. Finally, there are also a solution that we propose, that we gather the name of organizations that are interested in hosting job shadowing, and we publish them in our website. And there, right now, there is only 3 organizations that have given a feedback. So if your organization is interested in hosting someone in job shadowing, then just send me an email or send us an email, and we will publish it on our website. And those 3 organizations right now is FIA in France, HK-dir in Norway, and SBB in the Netherlands. But please give us feedback if you're interested. We also have a list of organizations that work with vocational qualifications. So if you don't know which organization in the country you are targeted, you may send us an email, and we try to see if we have the name of this person of the organization in your list, so you can take contact with them. Please remember a reminder: the hosting organization doesn't need to send someone. There is no requirement for reciprocity in the system. So you can send and not necessarily host someone. It's better if you host and send, but it's not. There is no requirement for that. Once you find out that you want to send someone abroad, you also have to. You would like to know, how much financial support do I get? Well, Bravoto provides a financial support for the mobility part of your job shadowing. This coverage covers travel, accommodation, and subsistence when the person is abroad. It is a European project, EU project, so it follows EU rates. That means that it's defined, and you can find the rates. There is a link to the rates on your website. It may not be sufficient in all countries to cover all the expenses because it's fast rate and sometimes it's more expensive than other. But it's usually cover more than 80% of the mobility costs. Be aware that the financial support does not cover the wage under mobility. It's not meant to that. It's meant to help for the mobility. So if I take an example, job shadowing from France to Norway, for instance, you will have a travel rate, which is 1,365 kilometers because it's based on the distance between the two points, the sending organization and the hosting organization. And it would be about 365 euros for traveling. Then you have 3 nights accommodation. It would be 145 euros per night, times 3, 435 euros. And subsistence, that means for food and travel, local travel, it would be 80 euros times 4 and 320 euros. So that's an example. But as I say, the rates are different from country to countries according to the EU rates. How do we pay? And that's an important part. All payments are done after the mobility. That means that you have to advance the cost and then we refund it. It is to simplify the process because it's very complicated for us to pay directly to the participant, and it's very complicated for us to pay in advance without having any proof. So that's why it's paid after the mobility, and I will come back a little bit further about that. But basically, you finish the mobility, you have 3 weeks to send us the documentation about the mobility, and with the invoice, with an amount we had agreed in advance, and we refund the amount. Now that you have the background information, you would like to know how to participate, how to apply. So we try also to keep the application process as simple as possible. And so we keep it as you send to us an email at least 3 weeks before the start of the job shadowing. You have the email address on the screen right now. It's bravo@hk-dir.no. And in this email, you just write the information about the hosting country, the hosting organization, the name and the town, the information about the sending organization, the name on the town and the responsible person as well, the contact person, some information about the participants, and the dates of the mobility. When we have that, we will contact you to get further information if we need, and as we will send you afterwards a confirmation that you can get financed by the Bravo 2 project and how much is it you will get from the Bravo 2 project. This confirmation would take the form of an agreement where all the detailed conditions for payment are listed. There's something you should be aware. All job shadowing must be completed by the end of April 2027, and that has to do something with the fact that our project finished in September next year. So job shadowings can start from tomorrow, and the last one should be finished by 1st of May next year. And that's also an important thing to remember. What kind of documentation you would need for this mobility? This as well, we try to keep it as simple as possible, but we have some requirements that we need to follow, both because of the reporting of the project as a whole to the European Union, but also because we have to have some proof that the mobility has taken place. So there's a deadline of 3 weeks after the end of the mobility to send a report from the participant where there is an overall evaluation of the experience. It's a short report, and the key learning outcomes and the reflection of what is transferable competence for your center. It should be 1 or 2 pages maximum, and even less. There is a template. We would need the receipt for travel and accommodation, and we will need a certificate signed by the hosting organization that confirm the presence of the participant in their office on those dates. So that's quite simple documentation, but it's important that we get it on time. I think that was all I wanted to present right now, the background information, and I will take the questions, and afterward I will show you our website. So if you have questions that have been written in the Q&A, it's no question right now. So please do write questions. Is there a limit of the number of participants from the same institution who can take part in the job shadowing mobility activities? That's a very good question. We have a limited amount of a limited budget, so we have a limited amount of mobilities. At first, we have up to 10 mobilities that are possible, 10 job shadowings that we can finance, but of course it would depend on what is the cost of the average mobility. We try to have 1 person per organization at the beginning, and if we see that there is not so much demand, we may open to more applicants, but at first it's 1 per organization. Is there another question? The questions are in the chat. Okay. Are there any limitation in terms of number of travel per sending recipient office? For example, can an office apply for sending 2 persons to 2 countries, different countries? Well, it's more or less the same question as the one I just answered. So I would say the same. At the beginning, it's 1 person per organization, and if we see there is more place, we can open to a second person per organization. So there is a second question. If you receive a greater number of applications than you may finance, how do you make the selections criteria? That's a very good question. I think we will first take in order of who have applied first. That would be the way we will do that. So I go back to Q&A. Are there any costs involved for the host institution? That's a very good question. There is normally no compulsory cost for the host organization. That's why we pay the mobility part. So normally it should not cost anything but time for the host organization. So the job shadowing is for 1 credential evaluator. What if the staff exchange should talk about in key activity in the beginning? What about is the staff exchange? Okay. The staff exchange is it's called staff exchange in the application, and we translate it in practice into job shadowing for credential evaluator. So that's the same thing, the staff exchange. And as I say, you may build a project on reciprocity, and we would take that into account, but it's not a compulsory requirement. That's any other question? No more question? No? Okay. Then if you don't have any more question that can... there is something blocking. The chat. Okay, sorry. There is another question in the chat. What are the main responsibilities of a host institution during the 2-3-day job shadowing placement? That's a very good question as well. The hosting institution has the responsibility of welcoming the person that is taking part in the participant, and it should organize so that this participant can follow one of the worker or has a monitor that will introduce them to the different aspect that they would like to learn about, and also introduce them to to organize some kind of space to have this exchange of practice between the two organizations. So that's basically to define together with the host, the sending organization and the participant, what you would like to do in our center, and explain which activities you can have in your center to achieve the goal you have defined together with the sending organization. That's what is expected. What is the deadline for the applications? There is no formal deadlines. It's at least 3 weeks before the start of the mobility, so we have time to answer you and to confirm that we would finance or not. But there is no hard deadline, except that the mobility should be finished by May 27. So the last applicant should be in the first of April 27. Any other question that I'm missing? To help us clarify certain financial and administrative aspects internally, could you please indicate which expenses are eligible for reimbursement? Yes. What I mentioned is that we finance the travel, the accommodation, and the subsistence. Those are lump sum. That means that you get an amount for the travel, which is decided by the distance in which between the organization who sent and the organization who received the participant. You receive an accommodation rate, which is calculated by country. There is a list on the website of the European Union where you can find which amount you get per night. And for the meals and local transport, it's called subsistence, and it's also a lump sum which is decided by country. So what we need is just to have a proof that the mobility took place with a copy of the travel expense and the accommodation expense, and the certificate. And when we get that, we get enough information to pay you the lump sums as a whole. Yeah, I hope it was clear. No, I have a problem with my iPad. Any other question? No, it seems that all the questions are answered. Anyway, if you have some more questions, I would advise you to send us an email, and we will answer as anything you may ask. I would also invite you to go on the website. I think you see the website now on your screen. And yeah, there you will find under job shadowing some information. What do you expect, the financial support? And you see there is a link to the website of the EU Commission where you can find the rates. Of course, we would confirm you if you applied, what are the rates and what is the payment. And you can find also the guidelines for job shadowing. It's a PDF, you can upload it. And you can find also the organizations that are willing to receive. If your organization is interesting, please send us an email and we can put you on the list. And you have the contact person as well, so you can already contact them and ask if it's possible to host. So that you get some information there. We will update regularly the information with some, for example, experience from the first that have been abroad, and we can the first results. Oh, there is a follow-up question. My understanding is that the mobility grant is intending to support participant center institution. However, the sending institution is willing to cover the cost of an additional participant from its own budget. Would it be possible for 2 staff members from the same institution to participate in the job shadowing visits? Yes, as long as you pay the second participant, it's not a problem. And as long as the hosting organization is willing to receive 2 persons. If so, would the second participant be subject to any specific conditions of approval requirements? No, because it's not part of the Bravo 2 project, so there is no requirement for the second person. So I hope that answers your question. Any other things that come to your mind? No? Very well. Thank you very much for following us. And I would invite you to go to our website, take contact with us if you have questions. And we hope to hear from you and that we get good exchanges and we can build this network for recognition of vocational qualification together and continue to cooperate together. Thank you and have a nice day.